So, we have a few quotations here. What's the first one? Okay, yeah, I quite like this one. We'd like to consider that the light in which we will shed our opponents can be summarized in the following way. A man gazing at the stars is proverbially at the mercy of the puddles in the road. I have no idea what that means. So, maybe you guys can figure it out. But in the meantime, we'll try to discredit them as much as possible.
Harrison, do you have anything to add? It's a quotation by a scientist. Throwing that out there.
Yeah, somebody I've never heard of, so go figure it.
Okay, do you have anything to add? That's not until my turn.
You have 2 minutes left.
Yeah, thank you.
They're like individuals.
Well, do it right now. Yeah, do it right now. Right now.
Spirit of scientific collaboration, I think.
No, like a band, you know, music.
Okay, now this is actually really interesting, and it kind of occurred in one of those moments of brilliance that I have every so often. Well, actually, all the time. But when we were researching the other day, I came across this website and had a bunch of quotes that scientists have about it. You know, good things about science, bad things about science, a bunch of random things about science. And there was an advertisement at the top left-hand corner of the page, and it said, "Return to school, get your master's degree in science, become master of your domain." That was the advertisement. Now, again, I thought about this for a little bit, and it made me reflect on the work of a brilliant, and from what I hear, very good-looking 21st century scholar who last year proved beyond the shadow of a doubt that Seinfeld is in fact a reflection of reality. Yeah, you're gonna wait. I'm gonna draw upon this published piece of work to establish our final point for the intro. If Seinfeld is reality, and I'm hoping that the people here today are devoid enough of ignorance to have heard of Seinfeld, and hopefully some of their episodes. So there is an episode when, thank you. There is an episode when they decide to embark on a period of abstaining from sexual gratification. And they deem this master of their domain. Now, they all end up failing. Not only failing, but in a matter of 30 minutes, which is, you know, the standard way. So, that actually, I like to think I made that connection. And that if we have 4 characters who have been proven beyond shadow of a doubt to reflect the reality we all live in, if they cannot become master of their sexual domain, then what hope do scientists have of becoming master of the domain that surrounds all of us? It's really a fruitless task. It's like a child running into a wall again and again. So, with that, I will end.
Well, we thank the first speaker of the opposition for his riveting speech. And now going back to the second speaker.
I'm not sure we ought to thank the opposition for that. This is going to be rather easy, I fear. And you guys are the leaders of tomorrow. Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me. Thank you, moderator. We haven't met. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
First we know each other.
Good luck.
I won't need it.
Good try. I want to start with a series of, my job is as the historian, and I'd actually like to begin with just a question spurred by my worthy opponent's comment. How old was he when Seinfeld went off the air? I shudder to think that he didn't see that final episode, let alone the first one. Let me begin by talking a little bit. I left my notes at home today. I've got some sort of general things here, but I had prepared some formal notes. So I regret I'm going to have to wing it, which I understand is de rigueur in the arts, and leads, sadly, to precious little. I am a sad, pathetic man in real life, and now I get to pillory myself. And I want to begin with a short section from a review of Homi Bhabha's cutting-edge work, The Location of Culture. This is a review written by a Canadian scholar at the University of Calgary who writes about this book, The Location of Culture. It is a provocative and illuminating text that will shock the reader into renewed knowledge of his or her own position in history and cultural discourse. As a cultural hybrid myself, I grew up in China, now live in Canada, and have attended universities in both countries. I find my own mirror image in what Baba describes as a forever exiled, ambivalent, subaltern subject of cultural difference. In an attempt to revise the known, to rename the postmodern from the post-colonial perspective, Baba investigates the question of the culture in the realm of the beyond. As he asserts in the introductory chapter, to dwell on the beyond is to be part of a revisionary time, to address the present from the position of a new time frame, a new narrative. What he sees in that revisionary beyond is the boundary, which in Martin Heidegger's terms is that from which something begins its presencing, which is a word I had to look up. I've not heard it. I'm going to have to use that at some point. The Heideggerian boundary is ingeniously translated by Baba into the liminal space of cultural hybridity. His whole project is intended to theorize the different moments of hybridity in cultural discourse, and he accomplishes this task by relaunching the post-structuralist theory of the sign on post-colonial terrain. Indeed, New French theory provides Baba with a vigorous... It wasn't hard to find this online, incidentally. The problem was choosing. With a vigorous and productive method for analyzing the cultural in-betweenness of the post-colonial world. His first chapter, The Commitment to Theory, can be read as an answer to the following question. Are the interests of Western theory necessarily collusive with the hegemonic role of the West as a power bloc? What the fuck? I should stress that this passes for cutting-edge scholarly work in the humanities. And let me step out of character. If we can stop the clock for all of 4 seconds. Let me say that history and philosophy are, of course, I think you would agree with my esteemed colleague and myself that we're above this fray, of course, working in the empirical and the empiricism of the sciences, while at the same time relying on some of the creativity of the arts and humanities. Thank you. Off the clock. Back to work. Let me offer another brief quotation from an essay entitled Transgressing the Boundaries Toward a Transformative Hermeneutics of Quantum Gravity, which appeared in 1996 in the Postmodern Theory Journal Social Text. The author SoCal writes, but deep conceptual shifts within 20th century science have undermined this Cartesian Newtonian metaphysics. Revisionist studies in the history and philosophy of science have cast further doubt on its credibility. And most recently, feminist and post-structuralist critiques have demystified the substantive content of mainstream Western scientific practice, revealing the ideology of domination concealed behind the facade of objectivity. It has thus become increasingly apparent that physical reality, no less than social reality, is at bottom a social and linguistic construct. That scientific knowledge, far from being objective, reflects and encodes the dominant ideologies and power relations of the culture that produced it. That the truth claims of science are inherently theory-laden and self-referential, a term I would like to return to later in the debate, if I may, and consequently, that the discourse of the scientific community, for all its undeniable value, cannot assert a privileged epistemological status with respect to counter-hegemonic narratives emanating from dissident or marginalized communities. These themes can be traced, despite some differences of emphasis, in Aronowitz's analysis of the cultural fabric that produced quantum mechanics, in Ross's discussion of oppositional discourses of post-quantum science, in Irigaray and Hales's exegesis of gender encoding in fluid mechanics, and in Harding's comprehensive critique of the gender ideology underlying the natural sciences in general and physics, and physics in particular.